In a world divided by kingdoms and borders, one force dreamed beyond the horizon, toward oceans no European power had yet mastered. It was the dawn of the 17th century, a time of grand ambition and untold risk. In the foggy harbors of Amsterdam, a new kind of empire was stirring, one that would not be built on land, but upon the vast, untamed waters of the globe. This is the story of the Verenigde Compagnie, the Dutch East India Company, and how it forged a revolutionary identity and empire of the ocean. Before 1602, the lucrative spice trade was a chaotic and dangerous gamble. Portuguese dominance, fierce competition, and perilous voyages meant that fortunes were as easily lost as they were made. The newly independent Dutch Republic, a tiny nation with colossal ambitions, knew it needed a different approach. The answer was radical. On March 20th, 1602, the States General of the Netherlands granted a charter to a single, unified entity, the VOC. It was more than just a company. It was a state-sponsored behemoth, the world's first multinational corporation. Armed with an unprecedented 21-year monopoly on trade with Asia, it was given powers typically reserved for nations: the right to wage war, imprison and execute convicts, negotiate treaties, and establish colonies. Investors from all walks of life, from wealthy merchants to humble artisans, flocked to buy shares, fueling its coffers with an initial capital 10 times larger than its English rival. With this immense backing, the VOC began constructing a fleet of ships unlike any seen before. Guided by maps that were more fantasy than fact, they set out not just to trade spices, but to conquer the map itself. For the thousands of sailors, soldiers, and merchants who signed on, a voyage with the VOC was a journey into the unknown. They left the familiar canals of Amsterdam for a life dictated by wind and stars. The journey was brutal. It could take 8 months or longer just to reach the East Indies, a voyage that would claim the lives of nearly a third of all who embarked. They battled ferocious storms off the Cape of Good Hope, the agonizing stillness of the doldrums, and the constant threat of disease and pirate attacks. On these long, arduous voyages, their old identities began to fade. A man was no longer just Dutch, German, or Scandinavian. His world became the deck beneath his feet, the creak of the timber, the stars he used for navigation, and the endless water surrounding their fragile wooden kingdom. Home was not a place on a map, but the ship itself. Their nationality became the VOC. Arriving in Asia, the VOC encountered a world far more complex and powerful than they had imagined. Ancient kingdoms and sophisticated trading networks had flourished here for centuries. In Banten, on the island of Java, the Dutch found a bustling port, a crossroads of commerce where Chinese, Arab, Indian, and local merchants traded pepper and other precious goods. The VOC knew that brute force alone would not secure its ambitions. Instead, it deployed a shrewd combination of diplomacy, intimidation, and commercial savvy. They negotiated treaties with local sultans, offering military support against rivals in exchange for exclusive trading rights. Where diplomacy failed, force was used. They built imposing forts, bristling with cannons, to protect their warehouses and enforce their monopolies. Here, thousands of miles from Europe, the VOC carved its first footholds. The spice islands of Banda, the source of nutmeg and mace, were taken with ruthless efficiency. The relentless pursuit of profit was the company's one true god, and no obstacle would be allowed to stand in its way. With its initial foothold secure, the VOC began to build an empire unlike any other. It was a network, a chain of fortified cities and trading posts linked by the sea. In 1619, the company established its new Asian headquarters, Batavia, on the ruins of the Javanese city of Jayakarta. Batavia became the nerve center of the VOC's operations, a queen of the East from which it could project its power across the entire region. From this hub, the company's influence spread like wildfire. They seized Malacca from the Portuguese, controlling the vital strait through which all east-west trade passed. They established a colony at the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa, a crucial resupply station for their fleets. They held sway over the cinnamon trade in Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, and established a lucrative, exclusive trading post on the island of Deshima in Japan, making them the only Europeans permitted to trade with the isolationist nation for over 200 years. An animated map of their trade routes would show a vast web, a circulatory system of commerce that pumped spices, silks, porcelain, and silver across the globe. The VOC's ships didn't just travel the world. They were the threads that connected it, weaving a new global economy with every voyage. This ocean-bound empire gave rise to a unique and complex society. The VOC became a floating republic, a multicultural world in miniature. On the decks of its ships and in the bustling streets of Batavia, people from dozens of cultures lived and worked side by side. Dutch officers commanded crews of Javanese, Indian, and African sailors. German soldiers defended forts alongside Japanese mercenaries. Chinese merchants managed trade within its cities, and local women formed relationships with company employees, creating new, mixed-race communities. While the hierarchy was rigid and European-led, the daily reality was one of constant cultural exchange. Loyalty belonged not to a distant king or a plot of land, but to the company that fed you, paid you, and carried you across the tides. Your passport was your contract with the VOC. This shared identity, forged in the crucible of long voyages and distant outposts, was the glue that held this sprawling maritime enterprise together. It was a citizenship defined not by birth, but by service to the company. By the middle of the 17th century, the VOC was at the zenith of its power. It was an entity of staggering scale and wealth. At its peak, it commanded nearly 5,000 ships, a private army of 10,000 soldiers, and employed over 40,000 people. Its value dwarfed that of modern tech giants combined, making it arguably the most valuable company in history. Huge convoys, laden with the treasures of the East, returned to Amsterdam, flooding Europe with spices that were once worth more than gold. The profits transformed the Dutch Republic, funding the golden age of Dutch art and science. Grand canal houses were built with VOC money, and the Amsterdam Stock Exchange, the first of its kind, buzzed with the frantic trade of company shares. The VOC was no longer just a trading company. It was a global power broker, shaping international politics, redrawing maps, and dictating the course of history from its boardrooms. But empires, even those built on water, are subject to the tides of time. For over a century, the VOC was the master of the seas, a testament to what a corporation, unbound by traditional borders, could achieve. It pioneered global trade, connected cultures, and forever changed the world's economy. It was an empire that rose not from the land, but from the sea. And for a fleeting, golden moment in history, it ruled it. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into the past fascinating, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that shaped our world.